Picture the coldest night you have ever felt. Now take away the flashlight in your pocket, the furnace humming in your basement, the box of matches sitting in your kitchen drawer. You are alone in a forest, tens of thousands of years before the wheel, before writing, before anyone had a word for civilization. The sun is gone. The temperature is dropping fast enough that you can watch your own breath turn to fog in front of your face. Somewhere in the trees behind you, something is moving. And the only thing standing between you and freezing to death or becoming another animal's dinner is a single spark. A spark that right now does not exist. This was not a rare, unlucky night for one unfortunate person. This was every single night for every single human being for nearly 300,000 years. No lighters, no matches, no flint and steel, not yet. Just two hands, whatever the earth happened to provide, and a problem that looks almost impossible the first time you try to solve it. And yet, somehow our ancestors solved it, not once, but over and over in nearly every corner of the planet, using methods so clever that some of them are still taught in survival schools today. Here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. Fire did not just keep early humans warm. Many scientists believe it rewired the human brain. Cooking food breaks it down before it ever reaches your stomach, unlocking far more calories than eating it raw ever could. That extra energy, some researchers argue, is part of what allowed the human gut to shrink and the human brain to grow into the power-hungry organ it is today. In other words, the very thing keeping you alive on that freezing night may be one of the reasons you are capable of understanding this sentence at all. Fire did not just protect early humans, it may have helped build them. So how do you make something from nothing? The oldest method is also the simplest to describe and the hardest to actually pull off. It is called the hand drill. You take a straight, dry stick, place its tip against a flat piece of wood, and spin it between your palms as fast as you can, pressing down the entire time. Friction builds heat. Heat turns wood dust into a fine black powder. If you are fast enough, patient enough, and just a little lucky, that powder ignites into a tiny glowing coal, one that can vanish in a heartbeat if you so much as breathe wrong. Archaeologists have found evidence of controlled fire use going back over 1 million years, and some researchers point to sites suggesting humans and their ancestors were experimenting with exactly this kind of friction fire long before modern humans even existed. The hand drill worked, but it was brutal on the body, and it failed constantly. So someone, somewhere, made an upgrade that changed everything. Wrap a cord or a piece of leather around that same stick, attach it to a bow like the kind used for hunting, and now your arm can do in seconds what your palms once did in exhausting, blistering minutes. The bow drill spread across the world independently, from the deserts of North America to the forests of Scandinavia to the islands of the Pacific. Different cultures, oceans apart, arriving at nearly the same brilliant solution without ever meeting each other. That's not a coincidence. That is what happens when survival is the only teacher and everyone is taking the same exam. Friction was not the only trick our ancestors figured out. Strike the right kind of rock against another rock and you get more than noise. Flint struck against a mineral called iron pyrite throws off tiny white-hot sparks, hot enough to catch in a nest of dry tinder if you are patient enough to keep striking. We know this was not guesswork because of a 5,000-year-old man discovered frozen in the Alps in 1991, nicknamed Otzi the Iceman. Preserved in ice for over 5,000 years, Otzi was found carrying a small pouch. Inside it, archaeologists discovered pieces of pyrite, flint, and a chunk of dried fungus known as tinder fungus, a natural material that smolders slowly once lit, letting a hunter carry a live ember for hours without it ever bursting into a dangerous, uncontrollable flame. This was not a caveman stumbling around in the dark. This was a fully equipped fire-starting kit carried by a man walking through the mountains 5 millennia ago. And it gets stranger.
In parts of Southeast Asia, some cultures developed something that looks almost like modern engineering, thousands of years before anyone had heard of an engine. It's called a fire piston, a small wooden or bamboo cylinder sealed at one end with a tight-fitting plunger. Slam that plunger down hard and fast, and the air trapped inside compresses so violently that it heats up enough to ignite a scrap of tinder packed at the bottom, all in a fraction of a second. That's the exact same principle that makes a modern diesel engine run. No spark plug, no electricity, just air, pressure, and an understanding of physics that these communities never wrote down in an equation, but clearly understood in their hands. Then there's the method that sounds almost too real to be real. In the Arctic, some Inuit hunters were documented carving a lens out of clear, solid ice, smoothing and polishing it into a shape that could focus sunlight into a single, tiny, blistering point. Aim that point at dry moss in the middle of a frozen wasteland, and even in a place defined by cold, you can call down a piece of the sun itself. Explorers who witnessed this in the field described it exactly as it sounds, using nothing but frozen water to defeat a landscape built almost entirely out of frozen water. Because starting a fire was so difficult and so unreliable, many cultures made a decision that seems obvious in hindsight. Don't start a new fire every time. Keep one alive, forever, and guard it like your life depends on it, because it did. In ancient Rome, a group of priestesses known as the Vestal Virgins had one sacred duty above all others: never let the flame in their temple go out. If it did, the punishment could be severe, because in a very real sense, an extinguished fire was not just an inconvenience, it was a crisis. Traveling groups across the world carried smoldering embers wrapped in bark, moss, or fungus from camp to camp, sometimes for days, tending them like a fragile living thing, because relighting from scratch was the last resort, not the first option. Here's what makes all of this worth remembering. Every one of these methods, the hand drill, the bow drill, the spark from stone, the compressed air, the ice itself, is a physics lesson figured out through nothing but trial, error, and an unwillingness to freeze to death. No textbooks, no teachers standing at a whiteboard, just generation after generation passing down a skill that meant the difference between life and death, refining it a little more each time until it eventually reached you. So the next time you flick a lighter without a second thought, or tap a button on a stove and watch a flame appear instantly, remember that behind that effortless motion is a chain of knowledge tens of thousands of years long, built by people who had absolutely nothing handed to them, and who lit the way for every single person who came after. Like and subscribe for more videos.